Alright guys, I wanted to do a quick tool review on the Accu-gage professional tire pressure gauge. My video that I had done previously on the Joe's racing gauge, the reason that I like this gauge is number one, it's very accurate, and number two, this is one of the few tire gauges that are actually made in the USA. It's very easy to read. This dial glows in the dark for low light situations, and it's got a swivel fitting on the end, which is very convenient. You can change this chuck from an angled chuck to a straight one, and it also has a pressure relief valve here that if the tire has too much air in it, you can let it out and instantaneously see what the new pressure is. The only thing that I don't like about this gauge is that when you take the air pressure, it will not hold the reading unless you leave this connected to the tire. Now the Accu-gage is, unfortunately, is a China-made product, but I will have to say that and I've had tons and tons of tire gauges, this one seems like it's a pretty good quality. In fact, this is one of the ones that is Honda certified, if that means anything. Unlike the Joe's gauge, the assembly comes out from the top of the gauge. It's got a large, easy to read dial. It's not face. It's not quite as big as the Joe's, but it is very clear and easy to read. The Joe's goes from 0 to 60 psi, which is fine for most automotive use. The other reason that I like this gauge is because it goes to 100 psi. And most people aren't going to need 100 psi, but if you ride dirt bikes and you use the tubeless system, you have to inflate the inner liner to a minimum of 100 psi. And short of using a digital gauge, which those really aren't as accurate as you would think they are, this may be a good compromise. This gauge will hold the pressure reading once you remove the chuck from the tire, so that's nice. You don't have to continue to hold it on to the valve stem. It swivels, which is a good feature to have. I do wish that this hose came out from the bottom, but that's just kind of personal preference. So what I'm going to do is I've got a tire here, and I'm going to go ahead and take a reading with the Joe's tire gauge, and then I'm going to take a reading with the Accu-gage, and we're going to see how close they are together as far as readings. Alright, I'm going to remove the cap off the valve stem, and first I'm going to try the Joe's. And it looks like we've got about 30, 35, and I'm going to call it 35 3/4. And now I'm going to try the Accu-gage. And it looks like we're getting, let me try that again, I didn't get it square on there. It looks like it also is reading about 35.5, maybe a hair more. So it looks like this gauge is pretty much spot on with the Joe's gauge. Now, again, if I was going to choose one gauge, and the one gauge that I'm always going to go to is going to be the Joe's. It's just very, I know this gauge is extremely accurate, but after looking at the Accu-gage, I'm also seeing that this gauge is very close to the accuracy of the Joe's. This gauge costs far less than the Joe's, so the Accu-gage may be a better value. Plus, I also like the fact that it reads 40 psi higher than the Joe's does. So, very pleased with the Accu-gage Professional. I don't think you could go wrong if you don't have a gauge to put one of these in your toolbox. Definitely This is going to help you keep your tires inflated to the proper PSI so you can get the maximum wear and the maximum miles per gallon. So I hope this review was helpful. I will include the part number to this product in the description below. I am not sponsored by either Joe's or Accu-gage. I'm just trying to give an honest and fair review of the product so that others can make the choices that they need to make to decide if they want to buy them.